Hey, we are in the States. We've just gotten back from 4 months in the Bahamas, and we would like to take the opportunity to do a Ask Us Anything. So if you have any questions about sailing in the Bahamas or going to the Bahamas, going with cats especially, we'd be happy to answer. But we'll start off telling you what we actually did, our route, and we'll start from there. So we left from Florida, sailed across the banks, and ended up in Bimini. From Bimini, we spent one night there, then sailed to Chub Cay, sorry.
Yeah.
So across the banks, and that was an overnight. That was our first time anchoring on the banks. That was lovely.
Yeah, and we anchored at there's a shoal by Northwest Point.
Yeah.
We were in south wind, so it offered a little bit of protection from the fetch, which is not that bad on the bank anyways.
Yeah. So from Chub Cay, after a few days hanging out there, waiting for the weather window to open up. Hey, Sushi, cool. We decided to move on to Rose Island, which is right next to Nassau. We hadn't heard great things about Nassau, so we decided to skip it altogether.
Where's home for us too? Ottawa, Canada, but we keep cats away in Kingston, Ontario, which is about a 2-hour drive south of Ottawa.
Yeah, and we're slowly moving back towards our home.
So yeah, after Rose Island, we had another beautiful sail to Highburn Key. So we were in the Exumas, which was lovely. The water is beautiful and clear. Lots of reefs, lots of things to snorkel on.
Yeah, we snorkeled on planes. We just basically island hopped down, saw the grotto, the Pig Islands, the swimming mermaid, and just lots and lots of beautiful reefs. And
and sometimes it's hard to find information about the Bahamas on the internet. So definitely talk to other cruisers who have done it, or talk to locals about what's happening. One of our favorite experiences was the FFF festival. It's like the first Friday in February at Farmers Key, and it's this really fun sailing regatta. But it's really difficult to find information about it online. So if you're headed that way, first Friday in February at Farmers Key.
So, Robin, we had actually planned on getting into the Gulf of Mexico, and we actually paid more to get our insurance to allow us to do that. But as soon as we started sailing, we slowed down. We realized that we had big plans in this year trip that we decided to take. So I think we'll have to take more than a year to reach more than. Yeah, to go further. Yeah. But it is on our list. We would love to get down to the Gulf of Mexico and see more.
Yeah, we rushed our way down south, and our goal when we started was to actually spend time in places, until we felt kind of like locals. And we didn't really get that feeling until we got to the Bahamas. So we chose to spend a little bit more time there.
Yeah, I suppose we learned how big the world is once we got on a really slow boat.
Yeah.
The kiddies are doing really well. So Herky's back to his Jazz is going to go get them. Herky's back to his happy self. We're really grateful for everyone that helped get Herky back to his
They just went outside. They're walking around on the bow.
So they're loving it though. Herky's sniffing the air all the time, and they're doing well. The next few months are going to be a lot less stressful for them, because we're going to be doing more intercoastal and less ocean sailing. So so then from the Exumas, we got down to Georgetown, which is the capital of the Exumas, and we spent about 3.5 weeks there.
Yeah.
Because there's a cruising regatta there, and that was really great. That was 2 weeks long, and just lots of cruisers, lots of competitions, and yeah, it's a really great little community. It's like a little floating city that happens. There was about 300 boats, and this was a light year. Normally there's up to 400 and something boats. Yeah, after that we then sailed on to Long Island and did another similar, very much smaller little regatta there. That was 2 days. We driven around on a bus. Yeah, had a really fun time. Saw a lot more of like old Bahamas that we hadn't really been exposed to. Actually, there's a kitty there in the top right, exploring outside.
I hope they know that we have the screens up.
Yeah, actually, Herky's now relaxing there. Yeah, we'll squidge over.
So if you go our route, you'll notice that you actually hit the smallest islands first. So we went fairly rural, I guess. And then when we hit Long Island, it felt huge because it was this island that we couldn't walk, from end to end. It took 2 hours on a bus to get from the north side to the south side. So when you get to those, larger islands, it's kind of worth being in a car, I guess, especially if you want to see the windward sides, because those are difficult to sail to. Yeah, very little protection, very few anchorages. So yeah. So after about a week in Long Island, we headed up north. Well, actually, so Long Island was the further south that we were going to do on this trip, and it was the Tropic of Cancer cuts through Long Island, so we'd actually made it to the tropics by that stage. It was it didn't really mean anything, but it was fun to be able to sail to the tropics. So then we started sailing north from there. Our first stop on the way north was Rum Cay. Rum Cay, yeah. We were a little disappointed with Rum Cay. There was the reefs were a bit they looked a bit bleached. Yeah, we've learned a lot more about what was going on there since we went there, and yeah, it's a little sad the state of coral and the fact that some of them are disappearing. So we only spent one night there, and then we moved on to Cat Island, and Cat Island was really great. The reefs there were wonderful. The people were amazing. The community was really wonderful. Yeah. It was probably one of the more laid back and rustic islands we had been to, but it was also one of our favorite stops. We learned a lot while we were there. And so we are going to sail up the ICW, and we will probably do the Erie Canal again. We'll be in New York City by July 1st. Yes, we have to be for our insurance. Yes. And then what we might do, depending on time, is actually take the Erie all the way down to Buffalo, and then up the Welland Canal to the west side of Lake Ontario, and then sail back to the east side, which is where our home port is. Yeah. So anyone feel free to jump in and ask questions. Sorry, unless that wasn't obvious. So Cat Island, we next season. That's us working so we can save for the next adventure. Yeah, so we're actually going to sell Cats Away when we get back, which is a little sad. But our plan is to join the sailing club and then sail the boats that they have there. Yeah. Oh, hey, Shannon. So we loved our gem for the Bahamas. The shallow draft was an amazing thing, and it saved us. It was a lot less stressful for us to travel having that shallow draft, especially when we were on the banks. The one thing I would say about being on the gem, we did sail back across the Gulf Stream, and because of the low bridge deck clearance, it is really noisy. If you're in any kind of chop, the boat vibrates and bangs around a lot, so it just depends on how sensitive you are for that. What's the next question? Oh man, so maybe we'll miss you, Sailing Pal Hannah. Keep us updated on where you are. And tell us if it's cold when you're up in the Erie Canal. We're trying to avoid all the cold on the way up.
One of the other advantages of the Gemini for the Bahamas was a lot of the routes we could do on the inside, whereas some of the more deep boats had to go on the outside, or they had to be tidal aware. Whereas for the most part, we could pretty much just tell when we couldn't sail over something because of the color of the water. It got like sandy. Sorry. Here's Herky. So anyway, from Cat Island, that's where we had the incident with Herky, and everything got sorted, which was wonderful. We hopped up the inside of Cat Island and ended up at Orange Creek. Was probably the nicest reefs that we'd sailed. That was in the north of Cat Island.
Any regrets or things you would do differently? Oh yeah. This is a long list. Definitely, we would have led all our lines back to the cockpit. Right now, our main halyard and our reef lines are at the mast, and that was a little bit difficult to manage during rough weather.
One other thing is the
windlass.
The windlass. Yeah.
Greg's so strong now, though. And we didn't like mast furling mainsails before, but we're kind of seeing the advantage of having like a furling system, or at least lazy jacks, because one of us always has to go up there when we want to drop the mainsail.
For the Bahamas specifically, we needed more jerry cans. We needed, especially for Georgetown, we didn't bring any. Well, we bought very few water jerry cans. We have a lot of water storage, like 60 gallons, which would last us that could last us a month really, if we were stingy with it. But getting water to the boat was more difficult in the Bahamas than elsewhere. So jerry cans. Maybe
having a depth sensor for the dinghy would have been useful. The Bahamas, the water is really clear, so you think you know the depth, but it's actually really hard to tell if it's deep water or if it's just a cloud over the sky. Oh, Shannon, one thing, we will get back to anything we did differently, but Shannon, one thing I would say is we should have just cleared out our aft bunk, like at least one aft bunk, and added shelving or boxes, because we use those as storage and it's just like one big mess in there right now.
Yeah.
I actually have a list of things we would do differently. Ooh, my brother says Herky looks thinner. Yay! Herky's on a diet since his medevac to Nassau.
So yeah, I'm sure you could put a water maker on here. There are the portable ones that are pretty small. Yeah, I forget what they're called, but there's a portable version that you could easily fit on here.
So we also used a UVC filter, like to purify water that we thought might be a little dodgy. Sometimes the RO water isn't potable in the Bahamas. And we kind of had this handheld one, but I think if we did it again, we would use a different system that could purify like a bunch of water at once. This way we just had to purify like one water bottle at a time, and that got a little bit tricky.
Our fridge is propane, which is problematic in the Bahamas. Well, because getting propane is it's not problematic. It's just a hassle. So we would have replaced the fridge with an electric fridge.
Obviously, these are all assuming we had like unlimited budget. The other thing is we would have liked to have more waterproof bags. You get really wet going back and forth in Georgetown and other places in the Bahamas, and you use your dinghy a lot. We have an 8-foot Zodiac with an 8-horsepower engine, and we just got drenched a few times going back and forth, like literally waves breaking across and like our hair getting soaked and splashing in our faces. People did tell us before we went to get a bigger dinghy and engine. Yeah. And we didn't listen.
We also would have brought a lot more spare parts, so more spark plugs for the dinghy, because we used it so much. But seals and we're learning this now, but seals and more zincs for the engine and all those kind of little things that that we slowly go through. But yeah, there's no cost in buying them early, so having them on the boat's always useful.
How many knots was the highest you faced so far? Probably in the 30s. We've seen a lot of apparent winds in the high 20s when we're in a downwind run. We recently reached our new top speed of 13.3 knots.
Yeah, actually, and that was with like a 26 knot gust, right? So
yeah,
and we're going downwind, so relative speed that would be 35 knots easy.
Yeah, but we were just on the edge of a squall when we turned away to run away from it, and it blew us to our newest top speed.
Yeah. The winds in the Bahamas though, they were relatively good. Like we had a couple of high winds that we had to hide behind an island for, but for the most part, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we only put less than 50 hours on the engine.
Yeah.
Since we were in the Bahamas, so we did manage to sail most places. I think we had to motor from like Spanish Wells to the Abacos because it was like 4 knots gusting 5 knots, and this was a long passage. So, you know, we sailed as much as we could, and when daylight started to fade, we turned on the motor. But yeah, what else would we have done differently? What does it say on our list? Because we do have a list. So
no other medical issues apart from Herky. Yeah, Jazz actually had like a bit of an ear issue, but she's doing well now.
She's restless. We were in the Bahamas for 4 months. So they gave us a 90-day permit when we entered, and then it's really easy. You can apply for an extension, but you just have to wait until 7 days.
Yeah,
like within 7 days of your expiry date.
And then you can extend it for another 90 days, and that's coming from a Canadian citizen and an Australian citizen,
right?
And I imagine the same for the US. I imagine the same for most other countries, to be honest. Yeah.
Some things I think we did well in the Bahamas is someone told us beforehand to carry like a lot of cash before we left, and the route that we took, especially down the Exumas, there is no place to get cash, and a lot of places don't take card. So I would certainly recommend that. You'll find ATMs in the bigger places like Georgetown, Eleuthera.
Yeah, any of the like the big islands that it makes sense for them to have those the big trucks, right? Because you need the those big armored trucks to.
Total time from when we left home. So we left Kingston at the beginning of September. We got bounced from the border. We tried again a couple weeks later and got bounced from the border again, and then got in 48 hours after that.
Yeah, so I think we like 20th of September, right?
It was late September. We were in New York City like mid-October.
Yeah, so
October, November, summer. Ish. So yeah, what else did we do well? It is a nice long vacation. So I think provisioning we did pretty well, although I bought like way too many lentils. We still have like bags of lentils. I just kind of assumed we would be on a pseudo-vegetarian diet because meat is like fairly expensive in the Bahamas. But apparently I just didn't want to cook lentils because we still have like a whole drawer full of them.
So Mitch, the plan going forward, we are currently in Cocoa Beach, getting some repairs done to the drive leg. So we'll continue up north, getting to New York City by the 1st of July. Then we're going to go up the Hudson River, down the Erie Canal, all the way to Lake Erie. We'll cross over the Welland Canal into Lake Ontario, and then head back to Kingston. And we'll eventually sell the boat.
Yeah, and work for a while to fund our next adventure.
Yeah,
which we're thinking maybe Mediterranean. But if you guys have any suggestions, we are open. So the kitties do use a litter box. Our kitties are in the same family, they've always shared a litter box, so that did make it easier. As for provisioning, we did provision. There was a slight accident when Herky and Jazz discovered their extra bag of food and just went like nutso on it. So I was like, why aren't they hungry?
Yeah, we were actually a bit worried about Herky because he wasn't eating.
And then I realized that their spare bag of food had already been like munched on and there was a big hole in it. But I mean, even in the smaller islands in the Exumas, there was access to a lot of pet food. There have been very few places where I haven't seen pet food. So,
plus, the kiddies went crazy for the fish we caught.
Right. If you're fishing, they're good.
It's actually, you're probably better explaining it.
Well, I think it's it's the breeze system. So the litter itself is non-absorbent. The urine goes straight through to holding tray. So just that in itself, we had to pack way less litter because one batch will last us a few weeks. And what else? Oh, and there's no tracking. That was my next thought. Usually with like clay litter or pine litter and stuff like that, which I've used before, there's a lot of dust. But this stuff...
For the only problem that we had was with getting the paperwork ready for the kiddies. It meant getting some... we needed to pay $15, and the was it 15?
So I think it's $10 per animal, but you have to pay $5 if you want them to fax your permit back to you. And it has to be fax. It can't be email. So we signed up for an online fax service.
So yeah, and we needed to get it. We didn't plan ahead far enough, so we needed to get it to them quickly. So we needed to express it to them. But the actual checking in part was fine. We had the rabies stuff done for the kiddies, and
all their shots were good. And you do need an international health certificate. This was especially important actually because when I had to fly Herky to Nassau, they wouldn't have let him on the flight if I didn't have an international health certificate, even though he was sick. Like I did tell him I was bringing them to the vet, so I don't know.
So Joe, thank you. And so our job's back home. I work in data. So I was working for a company called Shopify.
And I'm a music teacher and like a flute repair person. And we used to teach acro yoga part-time.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
The computer just switched screens all of a sudden.
Yeah, I will need a job when I get back. So if anyone's hiring. And thank you. Thank you someday. We're one day maybe.
Yeah.
And yeah, Chester, we've had fun running into lots of people and making new friends. So this has been great.
Yeah.
But we'll definitely be back on the water.
Would you guys have felt? Well, what would you consider blue water? Like you're thinking ocean crossing?
So yeah, the question is, would you be comfortable? Biggest the Cron, so that was like 36 hours. And that was that was like deep water, and that was 160 nautical miles.
Crossing, or at least okay. So yeah, I would have done Caribbean. We kind of have differing views on this. I think Greg feels really comfortable, like he would have done it for sure. For me, it's not that I would have felt unsafe on the Gem. It's just it would have been uncomfortable for me because the beam is narrow, so there's just a lot of motion in certain seas. And like I said, chop. Like you guys would not believe how noisy this boat can be when a wave hits the underside and like the whole cabin vibrates. So yeah, it just depends on your level of comfort.
Yeah, and if we were going to do more blue water crossing, we'd get a better radar system, and so that we could sleep easier and
have AIS and all that stuff.
So we'll be selling the boat from Kingston, Ontario, because the question was where will you be selling the boat? And we'll be selling it from Kingston, Ontario, because that's where I'm sailing on this adventure. I grew up in Sydney, Australia, and I've been in Ottawa for 4 years, and it's a landlocked city. It's maybe 1,000 kilometers to the ocean, and I was really missing the ocean. So so this has been on my mind. A big sailing adventure had been on my mind for a decade, I'm sure. But buying the boat and doing this trip specifically, that was my idea, but Diana got on board really quickly, which is great.
Sailing adventure. How bad could it be? So, and it was actually really fun for me. Like, I had never done sailing, and it for me to discover another activity that I really enjoyed. I kind of thought I had discovered all the activities I really enjoy.
Yeah, I feel like so for me, I really enjoyed sailing because it's this freedom, and you can move, and it's like the just the thought of this wind pushing you around and not having to rely on it. But yeah, Diana's kind of made me appreciate the actual love of the technical side. So that's been really great.
You can ask Greg. I'm obsessed with getting the boat to sail at half the speed of the wind. If she's not, I'm like, no, she's sluggish. Something's wrong. Like, we need to adjust the sails. So will there be a new boat? Not for a while. We're going to join a yacht club so we can keep sailing. The local yacht club, they once you're members, you can take out the yacht club's boat. So we'll keep doing that, which is which is a fun way to sail. The Catsaway's too much boat for where we live. So that's one reason why we wouldn't keep her. But we were considering buying just a little boat to play around with, or so where we live. So the question was sailing on Lake Ontario. The Catsaway would probably be okay for that, like size-wise. It would be definitely one of the larger boats on the lake. Yes.
But we're actually about an hour and a half, 2 hours from Lake Ontario, so we would be sailing on rivers in our home city.
Yeah, we've tacked back and forth a lot on this one part of the river when we purchased the boat.
Yeah. So is the boat designed to
sail in cold water?
Yeah, so the boat was originally from Cape Cod. It doesn't have a heater, like it's they get pulled out of the water basically. The sailing season is fairly short, especially in Canada. Yeah,
I wouldn't say designed for it, but it did okay.
Yeah.
I guess it depends how cold you're getting. So.
Yeah, I'm sure I couldn't handle iceberg, but.
Yeah. So anyways, after Cat Islands, we went across to Eleuthera, which was beautiful. It's like I said, we kept going to bigger islands. They were more built up. So it was a real, it was interesting seeing the communities changed as we kept going north. Oregon.
As in, would the boat be okay for a place like Oregon? Is that the question? Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. So then.
Do you have an idea on what you might sell her for? I think
we're thinking like listing her for 85 US, and then seeing how that goes. She's rigged for cruising Bahamas, so in that sense, like, she has everything she needs. She can just turn around at the border. We'll see how she goes. Yeah,
she we had, like, our solar was great in the Bahamas. There were a lot of other cruisers that were concerned about using too much power, but our battery banks were always topped off. How often did you use marinas in the Bahamas?
We only used marinas for filling up fuel. We didn't.
Never docked.
Actually, that's a lie. When we came into Bahamas, the first night.
Oh, yes.
First night in Bimini, we paid $1.50. It was pretty cheap, and
that's at Blue Water Marina in Bimini, and
it was really, really easy to anchor everywhere, and
what's our power bank? Sorry. Water here is rough in Oregon.
Oh, I see.
I think that still goes back to your level of comfort. Like I said, it's quite noisy in a chop. So it depends on the conditions in which you're sailing. There's definitely, I can't remember the name of the vlog. If one of you knows it, please shout it out. There was a couple that circumnavigated the world on their gem. So it's possible, but it just depends on your level of comfort.
So our power bank, Diana did the power.
So I think we have, oh no, I just thought about this. I think it's like 500 amp hours.
Yeah, it's about 5 kilowatt hours. That's definitely enough for us.
Yeah. Or maybe it was 480 amp hours.
Yeah.
Anyways, and we went with AGMs. Initially, we wanted to go lithium ion, but they're just so expensive right now. And we thought by the time we had to replace our AGMs, maybe the price of lithium would have gone down enough to justify the purchase then.
Just a yes. We actually just got back from attempting to watch a SpaceX launch. The question was, while we're here, are we going to watch a SpaceX launch? But it's unfortunately was cancelled at T-minus 58 seconds.
They might relaunch tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we'll be there. If they launch tomorrow, that's definitely on the plan.
So Sunday is asking about any camera gear not survive the trip. And no, everything that's a lie again. So I had a 360 camera that was in a dry bag, and I learned that the dry bags can also be a wet bag if the water gets in there, because the water can't get out. So I lost a little 360 camera that attached to my phone, which is why there were no more 360 videos.
Yeah, sorry guys.
But apart from that, everything else did well. The GoPro, a couple of the attachments rusted up, so next night's I think it was good.
We have 315 watts of solar, and our panel is on our dinghy davits. The only thing I would have changed is to be able to tilt the panel. So right now it is rigid on our davits. And when we were heading south, this was a little bit of a problem. We never drained our battery banks, but they didn't really top off until we got to Florida.
Yeah, our engine is isolated. We have two separate power systems. The house and the engine are separate, so the alternator doesn't charge the house batteries, which isn't normally an issue. But yeah.
Hey, Baden House! Yay, Ottawa! We heard it's getting warmer there.
So we had actually in Cat Island, we had an awesome experience with these kids coming and doing some acro with Diana.
Yeah, it was just this group of girls, and this one girl said, "I can't do that. I don't have good balance." And we were like, "Okay, you're going up for your first flight." But they were all amazing. And we also taught a class in Georgetown, acro yoga, and everyone did great. Yeah, lots of fun.
So Batten House is sailing in our hometown tonight. That's great. So we'll continue with our anyone jump in with any more questions? We're that's obviously the intent of this, but we'll continue with our trip through the Bahamas. So from Eleuthera, we stopped at a few places on the bankside again.
So we stopped in Rock Sound. Just so you guys know, it's pretty easy to get water in Eleuthera, and it was nice tasting water. So Rock Sound has a tab. We went to Governor's Harbor after that, and the holding in Governor's Harbor is awful. Just so you know, we tried to set our anchor like at least 6 times. We could not get it to hold. And we just kept dropping it in sandy patches. Like, we can get in really close to shore. And we kept thinking like, okay, there's the sandy patch. And she just kept dragging. And in the end, we thought it set. We like backed down hard. We're like, okay, we got it. And we dove on the anchor, and it was like caught on an old mooring block. So be careful if you anchor there.
So at this point, the drive leg was causing us some problems. Basically, we just had a slow leak in it. We got some fishing line in there, and that broke the seal. So we were trying to sail on and off anchor as much as possible, and not use the engine to. Generally, we'd use the engine to sail off anchor and to set the anchor as well. So so we had became a lot more weather dependent on our moves, but because of the prevailing winds and the protection of the we're on the bank side, so to the protection of the islands, it became fairly easy to move. Yeah. We continued up Eleuthera, got to did the current cut, which was really fun.
Yeah. Oh, this is something I would have done differently. If not get another anchor. We've been kind of salivating over the Rocknas, but get a swivel for anchor. So we have a CQR with a hinge. And so when the anchor resets, sometimes it just takes a while. Like if you watch these anchor sets, they kind of like drag on their side until they gather enough sand to dig in. But if you're on like a surface like Governor's Harbor where it's rock and like a thin layer of sand, it just took a while to reset.
So how did you decide where to cross to and from the Bahamas? So we ended up sailing from Miami to Bimini. That just seemed like the closest.
Yeah, it was the shortest one. At
But
the time, I didn't want to do a night passage, so I was like, "That's the one we're doing."
In hindsight, we could have made it shorter by using the currents. So we could have gone further south. And then jumped across still to Bimini, and the line over ground would be longer, but the sail through water would have been shorter.
Yeah. Oh, hi, bikes and trikes. Sorry, we missed you.
On the way back, we sailed from Turtle Island, and then we made a stop on the banks, and then sailed from there to Cape Canaveral. The reason we did the reason we left from there was because we were. That was our route through the Bahamas. So to see the most, to get them to the Abacos, we were in Green Turtle and leaving from there. The reason we had to come into Cape Canaveral is because I'm Australian, so I need a special visa to enter the States, and I need to go to a certain channel. It's a CBP port of entry, which is there's only a few of those. There's one in Miami, one in Cape Canaveral,
Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, Fort Lauderdale. So this was the shortest hop that we could get to. It also, again, it wasn't the shortest over ground, but because of the currents, it made the most sense.
We wanted to use the Gulf Stream to push us further north because we knew we would be delayed to doing boat repairs once we were back in the States. Sailing in the Caribbean, all that you thought it would be.
So I tried to have not have many expectations, but yeah. I think so.
It was amazing. Sorry, hang on, our radio's going off.
So I'd say it was amazing. I'm really glad we did it. I definitely got everything I wanted out of it.
Sailing on the Bahama banks, it's just incredible.
Yeah, that was more beautiful than I could have imagined.
Yeah, there's like wind is really consistent, and the fetch does not get that big on the banks, so you can just our sail across the banks. We were going 8.5, 9 knots, just like nice and steady. And
we have a liquid horizon. We can't see any land, and we can see the bottom of we can see to the bottom.
Yeah,
that was great. So do you guys feel that your Gemini could take you anywhere, or is it more of a coastal type boat? So we did discuss this a bit earlier, but it's as Diana was mentioning, it's your level of comfort. People have done ocean crossings on Gems. That's fairly common, but they're probably harder than I am. So
oh, the one thing I will say is some people reinforce their Gems, not because they're gonna fall apart or anything, but it's the light bolt. The mold is all one piece. So there's quite a bit of flexing in the frame if you go through heavy seas. So what I've noticed is sometimes when we go through really heavy seas, we have a couple leaks that then disappear as the boat resettles. And I think it's just the flexing of the frame.
So how was sleeping at night? Any miserable hot nights? Yeah, there's when there was a strong southerly and it was a damp hot. That wasn't fun. Like, we don't have any air conditioning on board, and we have a couple of little fans, but yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Nothing terrible. Yeah.
The actually, when we were coming back, we stopped on the banks in just after
Green
Turtle. Yeah, we stopped. We thought we were hiding behind a rock, but it wasn't there. So yeah, that was an uncomfortable night of loud bangs. But
not because it was hot, just because it was noisy.
Yeah, just because we didn't have the protection that we were expecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after Eleuthera, well, at the end of Eleuthera, we ended up going through Currents Cuts, which is
we do. So the only time we put in our screens is when there's no wind, because generally when it's windy, the bugs can't really find you, but when it gets really still, then the no-see-ums come and get you, and they suck. Literally and figuratively.
Oh, thank you. And hey,
hi,
Jesse. Yeah, sorry. So we sailed through Currents Cut to Spanish Wells. Again, we were sailing on anchors, so sailing on and off anchor. Yeah, which was fine.
Yeah, and Spanish Wells was nice. We didn't see as much of Spanish Wells as we wanted because there was actually like this big blow, and we couldn't get off our boat. We were anchored and we were protected, but it was still like gusting 35 knots, so we didn't really want to dinghy around there.
And I sat on the anchor to make sure that we were well set, and came across like 3 conch on the way back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we found a little minefield of a gold mine of conch, which was great for me. Diana's allergic to conch, but she cooks it for me because she's very nice to me.
But I got conch horns
from Eleuthera. Then we had a big hop to the Abacos, and this was I think it was 54 nautical miles. We thought we'd have wind to sail the whole way, but unfortunately, about maybe 3 hours out, oh, sorry, we just been suggested that our video is a bit the quality isn't great. We're actually borrowing Wi-Fi from.
We'll try and work it out a little better next time. I think when the boat's swinging back and forth, it loses Wi-Fi every once in a while. So thanks for your patience.
Yeah. So we lost the wind basically on that sail and had to mode it at the end, so that we would get to anchor before dark, because it was a new anchorage that we weren't familiar with. So
yeah. So we went to anchored by Lynyard Key, which was beautiful. There's a really beautiful reef north of Lynyard Key. I think it's called Sandy Key. Anyways, it's protected. There are these mooring balls for your dinghies, and it's spectacular. It's a really nice reef. Yeah. After that, we had a really beautiful sail up to Hopetown, which is this adorable place in the Abacos. Randomly, they filmed an episode of Scrubs up there. It was really fun to watch that.
Yeah, and then that's the from there we sailed up to Green Turtle, and we were staging in Green Turtle, waiting for our big hop back to the States. Yeah. Does anyone have any more questions? We'll
your cruising budget.
Yeah, so we our cruising budget, what was it, like 1 to
Yeah, so we tend to spend around $1,000 to $1,500 a month.
US.
Obviously this changed like when we had to fly Herky to Nassau. And
yeah, we're gonna have a few expenses with the fixing up.
I think the one thing that I struggled with personally is I just really like to eat in new places. And when you're traveling all the time, that's not really possible, if you want to stay on a budget. So I had to kind of curtail that back. But
Yeah,
it was okay.
yeah.
We can eat all the lentils that I overpacked.
And the Bahamas, like some things are expensive, but in general, it's probably similar for us at least, because we were sailing a lot, so we weren't spending a lot on fuel, and yeah, like rum's cheap.
Yeah, rum is cheap.
So we changed with what we might drink and whatnot, but yeah, it wasn't too bad for us. So the question is, did you find yourself spending less as time went by? Yeah, I think so. We like fishing more, and then actually towards the end, I started to get a bit nostalgic about leaving the Bahamas, so I kept wanting to eat out to eat the dishes. But apart from that little splurge at the end, yeah, I think we started spending less.
Yeah, and you just kind of get efficient at buying what is affordable in the Bahamas. So like cabbage is really cheap. You know, oranges aren't too bad.
Corned beef is really cheap.
Corned beef is super cheap. Yeah, it's like cheaper than we've ever found it before.
And then like eggs and cheese and milk are subsidized by the government, so they're also cheap. So yeah.
Yeah, that's not so shabby.
Yeah, and plus we're from Canada, right? So the we're comparing the prices to the prices back home, and sometimes they can be quite expensive. And then we can just ignore the exchange rate as well to make ourselves feel a bit better.
Sailing, Pauhana, I agree with you. We do get very excited about food.
So Jesse is asking, any plans to go to the Pacific? Not right now, but I'd really love to sail the Great Barrier Reef. We'd probably do that with a charter, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many places to see, you know, and we want to spend time there too. So yeah, one thing we learned from this particular journey, like if we were to do it again, maybe is to start a little further south. We did love it was an experience to learn the route and also about our boat, but it just took a lot of time. So we probably could have explored more of the Caribbean had we not taken so much time coming down south.
And so Warp Drive's asking if I looked at the fat content of the corned beef that was very popular in the Bahamas, and I didn't, and I'm not going to, because I want to keep enjoying it.
Yeah, that stuff doesn't bother us.
Yeah, so Honorate is saying the South Pacific would be great on a bigger cat. Yeah, I think an ocean crossing cat would be amazing. That would be fun one day.
We did see a lot of really fancy big cats, although it was really fun for us to say that we were on the smallest cat out there.
Yeah, that was
to look for the little cat.
Easy way to describe our boat. So do you think you will do another long sailing trip in the future, even if it's in retirement? I definitely think we'll do another long sailing trip. This has been great to do it early so that we know that we like doing this. And yeah, I think we'll just have more comforts in the future. And to be honest, like I'm sure sailing 10 years ago is so different to sailing now. And I can't imagine how different it'll be in 10 years. So we'll, we might take another gap, our thing, to get 40s gap year.
Bikes and trikes, that is definitely on the list. They're asking, they said they would love to see more videos of us interacting with the boat, things that we like or dislike. And I actually have a list of things that we want to list. We just have to film and make the episode. That one you might have to wait until the end, depending on how organized we are.
Yeah,
with the filming.
We want to do some cleanup.
It's a little messy.
And I know everyone says it's fine, but yeah.
But we want you to see Catsway looking, you know, as beautiful as we think she is. So, Spam is another popular one over there. Yeah, I agree. We didn't buy Spam because I think it's a little too salty, but we did buy and eat a lot of corned beef. A lot more than we were expecting.
So the question is, will you continue using your channel as weekend sailors? And yeah, I think we will. We'd love to do a charter and show that side of things. And there's no reason we'd stop.
Yeah, and it would be super fun actually, like when we go back and sail on a monohull again, just to note the differences. And I've been kind of like I've been really wanting to try sailing and on such. And there's a lot of non-suches in Ottawa for no apparent reason. I guess they are Canadian boats, but they just look really fun to sail. So, sailing hasn't changed, just even more electronics. Just keep sailing. Don't worry about tomorrow. Yes, and
That's fair.
we appreciate the electronics that have changed. We like having electronic.
I'm a geek, so that's what I perceive. You're right. The sailing hasn't changed. The the toys that are attached to the sailing has.
Yeah. Thanks, En route. That's really nice. Yeah. So, what are some other things? I know there's some other things
that we would do differently.
Make sure you get your bottoms painted, because otherwise you'll end up scrubbing the bottom like we did.
Yeah, we were really surprised at how quickly the growth is in the Bahamas. I like the water's super clear, so the bottom of our boat was getting exposed to sunlight that it wasn't before. So it's just perfect breeding ground for things that slow our boat down. Yeah. Yeah, we might wrap it up then.
Yeah.
And then, unless anyone has any more questions, we'll thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, and sorry about we did this kind of instead of our vlog. We're really behind on this week's episode because of the crossing and our repairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had lots of excuses to procrastinate.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, cover coat. I was looking at that stuff. That's great.
Sweet. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Sorry, one more question. Oh, we had another question here from Bikes and Trikes. How long do you typically stay in one spot? So the longest we'd stayed in any one spot was 3 weeks, and that was in Georgetown, and that was largely because of the cruising regatta. But generally, anywhere from a couple of days, maybe 3 days was the average, and that was enough for us to get into the town and see the local things to do.
And some of this was weather driven, like being in a place and seeing if you were going to get caught in a weather window, if you wanted to get caught there. So sometimes that would facilitate our move to the next place.
Yeah, like Bimini, for instance, we were only there for a day, but we would have loved to spend a bit more time there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. All right.
Okay, yeah. Thanks again for watching.
Thanks, guys.